Hello, welcome. I think that was enough for the intro there. People are gonna come on as they come on. I think there's about 20 people, 21 people registered. So I'm gonna just start moving it and really get into this. Welcome to Body Love Blueprint. This has been some time in the making that I've been creating this beautiful 5-day, really in-depth program. It's an embodiment journey, is what I call it. And it's also a paradigm and perspective shift. So, as I can see, a few of you commented in the comment section, you're here to really further your self love. And what does that even mean? Right? Like, we hear it so much and we're like, yeah, love yourself more, do all these things. But what does it actually mean? And that's really what the journey of these next 5 days are going to be. I understand not everybody's going to be able to make them every single day. Obviously, try your best, but there will be replays. And you also have a pretty in-depth workbook that you can even use on your own to really bring some awareness to where you are possibly needing to reconstruct and shift your perspective around what body and self-love is, right? So thank you guys all for supporting me. My name's Lauren Jewell. If you've never met me before, I am a mind and body practitioner, and I specialize in the gut brain mood connection along with identity evolution. So I provide a total body health experience, and I really work with the physiology, the biology, and really our psychology of how we interact through our mind and our body and how that plays out in disease and symptoms and discomfort and why we know what to do, but we don't do it, right? So this journey for me began 5 years ago, and it came from a place of deep frustration, a lot of self-judgment, a lot of, why me scenario. And I didn't understand how to even be human, really. I didn't get it. I just was like, okay, I need to numb this out. I need to really binge and restrict and go to the gym. And it just seemed all too much with the stressors that were going on in the world. And so as I began getting curious, when I was attempting to go to the doctors and do all the things that society says, I realized that from my journey of getting sober 5 years ago and then trying to live sober and re-implementing into the system, I realized it was the same thing, but it was considered healthy. And so I realized that I needed to take my power back. And so I got curious. And that's one of the first steps I want you guys to do is to stay open when you're listening to me. And I want you to stay curious and allow yourself the space that if you hear something I say and you're like, that's not true, there's no way, understand that this is a paradigm shift and we are reconstructing a perspective on what health is. Now, everything that I share with you is backed by science, but it's so different from what we've been brought up on. It can create a trigger. It can create a resistance per se with your mind, right? But what happened for me was that I got curious. I went back to school, thought it was just nutrition for health, right? For body love. Thought it was just eating better and working out. And then I realized, okay, I lost 40 pounds. I look great. I look the best I've ever looked. Why do I still feel so empty inside? So then said, maybe it's mindset. Went back to school for that, worked under Tracy Litt, did a lot of mindset work on myself. And then I said, okay, now I'm just really aware, right? I'm really aware that I'm aware. And I'm in this like vortex of being aware. And I couldn't understand why I looked the best I ever had, but I felt the worst I ever had. And then that's when I realized, okay, I'll do all these things. I'll go help myself with therapy. I'll help myself with mindset work. I'll invest in school for nutrition. I'll start working out. I'll do EFT. I'll do visualization. I'll do a retreat. I will go to the doctors. I'll go to a acupuncturist. I'll go to a massage therapist. I'll go all the way across, the country to go to this retreat to expand my mind, a silent retreat at Bali. I'll do all these things. But the one thing that I wasn't doing was feeling. I'll do this. We will do every single thing. I could have kept going there, right? I could have kept going, insert whatever you've done, self-help books, joining groups, talking about it. There are so many things that we do to try and feel better about ourselves. And the one thing that we don't do is we actually don't feel. We'll think about feeling, talk about it, but we don't actually feel. And so I got really curious about this because I realized that I saw my mother do this too. She drank and she coped and she did everything possible for herself to try and feel better. And then she got cancer twice. And I realized it was because she'd never actually fully, authentically lived her truth. She never actually allowed herself to be fully expressed. And when I say this, when I say fully expressed, I mean feeling all her feelings, right? Fully expressing what she wanted, what she needed. And I don't think she did because she didn't actually know what it was because she was never in her body. She was always in her mind. Then I said, hey, mirror, mirror on the wall, I am my mother after all, right? She died in 2011. So in her honor, I said, if I'm going to do anything in this lifetime, I'm going to figure out how I can just be human and live comfortably in my own body, right? And that's what I want for you guys, is for you to fully understand your body so that you can trust it, so that you don't look at it with resentment, with bitterness, with anger, with frustration. So you beat it out of it. So you work it out of it. So you restrict your food out of it. We do so many things, right? We look in the mirror, we judge it, we shame it, we get frustrated with it. But we don't actually allow ourselves to feel the feelings that are coming up. So with all that being said, welcome to day one of Body Love Blueprint. This is day one. So we're learning about body literacy. And body literacy is essentially the understanding of how our body works, right? Understanding what the body's actually trying to tell us and being able to create a new relationship with it so that we are not in a place of feeling victimized by our body, feeling powerless over our body. And so that we can start to feel empowered and really see that our symptoms are not they're not nuisances. They're not problems to be fixed. They're actually messengers. And it's not you who heals the symptom heals you. Because every single symptom that you have is guiding you deeper into your healing and expanding journey. That's what we're here for, right? Every symptom is telling you something. It's the language of the body. And a lot of it is tied back to certain instances in our life, right? A lot of it's tied back from childhood. And the symptoms are essentially stored memories and parts of ourselves that we repressed, suppressed, or were oppressed. And then we kept going and growing and moving and going, but we left behind that one part of us that maybe we rejected, or maybe it wasn't accepted, or we shamed. And so your body starts to speak. And the only way it can speak isn't through voice, it's not language, but it's through symptoms like acne, through stomach issues, through chronic disease, through muscle pain, right? So it's always guiding you and it's never wrong. The body's always right. It's just our perspective that needs to shift because we've been looking at it like this is a problem. Like this is a pain in my ass, right? We look at it like, oh God, look at me, right? So before I get into all of that, I want you guys to feel free to go to the bathroom if you need to right now. And then also feel free to take notes. Definitely interact in the chat. I won't obviously see all of them, but I'm going to make time to get to it. If you have any questions, just ask in the chat and then I'll get down to it again. And then feel free to also, at the end, I'm going to open up space for us to speak together. If you have any questions for me or you need some coaching around something, definitely feel free to use this time. Like this is a special moment for me, but I want it to be good for you too. So where you can get something. So If you would like to, or if you need to, use the restroom now. And then I want to take us into a journey into the body for a moment. So that way we can ground ourselves before we learn. So that way we are actually centered and focused. So I'm going to give it 1 second. Get yourself comfortable if you'd like. Turn off any dinging or loud noises if you have it. All right. Now I want everybody to watch me. I'm going to give you a alternative nostril breathing. So if you've never done this before, you're going to take your thumb and then you're going to take your pointer finger, or you can use your middle finger. Just don't want to look you guys off right now. And you're going to plug your right nostril. This is just, I'm going to show you how to do it. So don't feel like you have to do it perfectly, but plug your right nose. And then you're going to breathe in through your nose, the left nostril. And then you're going to plug the left nostril. And you're going to breathe out through your right nostril. And you're going to breathe in through your right nostril. And you're going to plug and then breathe out through the left nostril. Then you're going to breathe in through the left nostril. Plug and breathe out through the right nostril. All right. So hopefully everybody gets the gist. If you're having trouble, let me know in the chat. And now just kind of breathe everything out before we get started. Move your body around if you like. This might be the first time you've actually gotten into your body today. And what this is, the alternative nostril breathing, is the one and only breathing technique for myself that has actually gotten me to shift my state to the point where I feel like, am I taking a substance? Am I not taking a substance? Is this really air? Is this possible? It is. And so I want to take you guys just through a few minutes of breathing. We're going to do 90 seconds. So breathe everything out and close your eyes if you haven't already. And then you can plug your nostril, right nostril, and breathe in through your left. And plug your left nostril. And breathe out through your right. And breathe in through your right nostril and get deep down into the belly. And plug your right nostril. And breathe out through the left. Breathing in through the left. And plugging. And going at your own pace. As you're doing this, just notice your body and the sensations. Maybe your heart's beating a little fast. Maybe you feel funny because you're not able to keep up. Just notice, but don't make any judgments. And keep going at your own pace, doing alternative nostril breathing. And then feel free to stop and just keep your eyes shut and notice your body sensations. And you can start breathing at your own pace, keeping your eyes shut, breathing in through your nose and holding. And then breathing out through your nose. And I want you to pay attention to your body. Maybe you smell something in the air. Maybe you hear something around you. Maybe you feel the chair. Just notice this. Now, I'd like you to silently to yourself just say, "Hello, body. It's nice to see you, body." I'd like you to ask your body how it's doing and see if anything comes up for you. See if you notice any tension in your body, any sensations, and just stay curious. You can put a hand on where you feel tension, where you feel a symptom, and just bring loving awareness to your body, letting it know that it's safe, that you're here now. And every time you breathe in, just imagine that you're breathing in healing air, that you're sending your body healing messages. The body is our subconscious mind. So our beliefs about our body affect our physiology. And if we are chronically repressed or suppressed, or we feel shame, or we're constantly in fear, your body is going to show that. It's going to show that through the way that you carry yourself, the way that you feel daily, all of these things. So when you're ready, take a moment and you can just say, "Thank you, body." You can squeeze it if you want. Give a little butterfly hug like this. And then just give yourself a little squeeze. And then come back to me when you're ready. And let me know in the chat what you noticed. If you noticed any sensations, if you noticed where there's any tension, or if you've had any symptoms that have been bothering you lately, put it in the chat. All right. May says she's been sore on her right side. And how long has that been going on? Perfect. And when you were able to tune into your body, were you able to notice that I'm sure you noticed the sensation, but did that calm your system down at all by getting into your body? May? Perfect. Now, Wes says, "I noticed chest tightness and heaviness." Amazing. That's why I said that a lot of times if we haven't been in an environment, one, where we're public like this, and two, when we're doing it, being witnessed by others, sometimes we can feel constricted. It can feel, whether or not you're consciously aware of this, subconsciously, it can be kind of, you know, activating, and it can cause your body to tense up to where you're not able to breathe different, breathe into your belly. So Jess said, "I felt tension leave my arms and shoulders, and I felt energy, electricity go through my teeth." Amazing. Honestly, that's really a short practice that we did, and it was very intuitive on my part. But the more that we can do this, where we can bring non-judgmental awareness to our body when we are feeling a symptom, or we're feeling an emotion, or we're feeling a sensation, that's when we're going to be able to learn what our body needs, right? Our body is highly connected to what's going on emotionally, right? That's where energy and emotion lives, is the body. It's not the mind. So when we don't feel, which we'll talk about this on day 3, when we don't know how to feel, like many of us never were taught, we don't realize the amount of congestion that's in there, which causes the communication through our body in different ways. And we also may feel extremely uncomfortable in our body. It might feel really unsafe. Even though we're doing something to bring safety, we have to repattern and reprogram ourselves to get comfortable with communicating with this beautiful body. So we will go deeper on this in a moment, but what I want to do is I want to start to dive into really what body literacy is and understanding the four bodies that connect us, right? Because health, when we're talking about health and we're talking about disease or we're talking about mental health, it's all the same, okay? So one of the things that I want to touch on is the fact that in the last decade, there have been hundreds of studies that have affirmed how our thoughts and our beliefs impact our health outcomes. Okay, so there's a lead author of a study, Dr. Ala Crum, who conducted a plethora of studies affirming how our beliefs impact our metabolism, our immune system, and even how quickly we heal. Okay, so when I say this, it can sound like, oh crap, if you weren't aware of this, right? If you were part of a society like all of us were, where everything was separated, you can be like, uh-oh, what does this mean now? But what I want you to do is I want you to realize the power that's in this. Because now that you understand this, what this means is that because we have something called neuroplasticity, which we're going to dive really deep into this tomorrow, is we have the ability to rewire and repattern the beliefs of our body. We have the ability to tap into our body and teach it what's safe and what's not, right? What safety feels like so that it can actually access its own healing mechanism. So we have been so taken over by the pharmaceutical company. Like our beliefs are so constricted around that. We see constant ads, which is so weird, on TV selling us weight loss shots, right? Like hers kills me. I'm like, God damn, you're literally like all of these things where we don't believe that we can actually heal. And so I don't not believe in medication. I think it's very helpful, but I think it needs to be bridged with the understanding that it is a bridge and it's not the only way. So our body has its own healing mechanism. And the way that we access that is through creating the safety that our body needs. And this has to do with our nervous system. This has to do with our gut brain connection. And it has to do with our mental, like our belief structure and how we think and how we interact with our body. Okay. So we're either in healing mode or we're in survival. We're either in fear or we're in a place of empowerment, right? And so that's really what this journey is going to take us on. I'm doing it in increments where we're going to learn all the different areas of our body, the different bodies that we have. And you can see in your workbook that we have 4 different bodies, right? We have our physical body, which everyone knows. This is the most common. This is where our symptoms show up. This is where we go to the doctor and we get prescribed something to fix the problem, right? And we have stomach aches and we have headaches and we have insulin issues and we have issues with fertility, right? We are aware of the physical body. But what we're not aware of is that the physical body is actually the last place for the symptom to show. New science is showing now that it starts in the mental, emotional bodies. So it starts in the spiritual, mental, and emotional bodies where we begin to create this within our mind because our mind doesn't know what's real or imagined. And we create an energy field around us since we are all energy. We are 99.9% energy. So our emotional state and our state of being and the vibration of what our body's at begins to create matter. And that's when it shows up in the physical body. Now, understanding this is one thing, but how do we actually begin to work on this, right? How do we start to break this down without feeling really overwhelmed and really, again, just another overwhelming piece of information that we see all over Instagram and social media? Well, it starts with what we started with. It starts with awareness. Okay. It starts with awareness. It starts with education. So understanding it is really important. Having the correct information and the awareness without judgment is the first start. Secondly, it's learning how to be in the body because the body, the information goes from the body. I believe it's like 80% of the information is going up to the brain, and then it's going down only 20%. So the body informs the mind, right? And that was a big aha for me, was when I understood that. So our physiology and our biology informs our brain about 80%. And then our mindset and our thoughts inform the body too. It's a bi-directional communication. Excellent. So we have our physical body that we just talked about. Then we have our mental body. And then our emotional body. And then we have our spiritual body. And our spiritual body is really just being able to connect to something bigger than us, right? I like to think of spirituality as connection. So our connection with our body, our connection with nature, our connection with others, our connection with this earth. I don't affiliate it with any religion or anything like that. It's just your connection to something and understanding that there's something bigger than just you, right? Just your perspective, and really allowing yourself to see the meaning and the lessons that life is bringing you here on this earth. So a few questions that you can start to ask yourself are, what emotions are you holding on to? What beliefs are keeping you stuck? How connected are you to your higher purpose? And what has your body been trying to tell you? So if you have anything that's coming up right now for you that you want to share, feel free to drop it in the chat. If you have any ahas coming up and it's making sense, or if it's not making sense, just drop it in the chat. I'm definitely here to answer any questions that you guys have. But I want you guys to realize that the first step is body literacy, like I said. So every symptom is a message. And for example, what this can show up is jaw tension. Raise your hand if you've ever gotten shoulder, neck, and jaw tension when you're just going a little too hard. This is probably one of the most common. And I even have calluses in my cheeks from this when I was overachieving and I was constantly going. And I thought that the whole point of life was to just do more, work hard, and then I'll be able to relax, right? That's what everybody was taught. I'm just like working, gotta get there. Little do I know, I have severe neck pain and I have severe calluses on my, jaw. And I'm like, what? We're like injuring ourselves to get to this place that never truly really arrives. And when it does, it never actually feels like we want it to, because we were never feeling in the first place. We were numbing and working and doing everything other than actually learning how to feel. So when we have jaw tension, this is your body's way. It's very metaphoric related when you are talking about the body. So the jaw is connected to your throat, right? So when you have jaw tension, it is a message from your body that you are holding on to unexpressed anger, or you're compromising and you're feeling resentful and you aren't saying what you really need to say. Does that make sense? Stomach pain can signify unresolved identity issues or deep-seated rooted feelings of worthlessness, guilt, shame, right? Like the sayings, when you have a gut feeling, like when you're nervous, what happens? Your tummy starts to get a little something. That's because of your gut-brain connection. It's not, your gut isn't just alone. Your gut, your heart, your entire body, it all works as one system, right? Our emotions affect our immune system. Our emotions affect our gut. And the saying goes is that you can only digest your life as much as you can or you can only digest your food as much as you can digest your life. And what this means is that a lot of times when we have, per se, constipation, right? Let's say you're struggling with constipation. Normally, we would go to the doctor and we would go to the doctor and they would say, here's a prescription for some laxatives, drink some more water, maybe an enema. Who knows, right? Like maybe that. That might get you a solution to constipation. You might go to the store and get some magnesium, whatever it is, that just blows you out, right? That might solve the problem right there. But this is where you're not actually getting at the root cause. And this is what I work with my clients on. And this is what I'm trying to teach everybody to really become their own guru, to understand their body. What's underneath that though? Because you just got the symptom, but what was causing it before that? If we understand now that it's coming from our mental and emotional body and our spiritual body, and we also know that the physical body plays a part, what's underneath it that's causing it? So instead of just stopping there and treating symptoms, which a supplement addict also is the same thing as just treating symptoms, you have to go deeper. And so you can start to do the questions that I have within your workbook. You can ask, okay, what am I holding on to belief wise? What emotion am I holding on to? Am I not connecting to something spiritually, right? Am I not connected to a higher purpose, right? And so when we can begin to do this, this is where I'm talking about. You don't heal your symptoms heal you. They start to redirect you to allowing you to realize that your intuition, it's not just intuition, like with like all this stuff that we hear. Intuition is also connected to our body, right? So our symptoms are also parts and ways that our body communicates us to get us back on track. So when you can look at it in this perspective and say, thank you, body. What are you trying to tell me? What do you need? And you can start to understand that it's little parts of you, your inner child speaking out, right? Our symptoms are connected to our childhood and they're connected to big life transitions. So, for example, when you're in your mother's womb, you're not just growing inside there and just, you start off fresh. You're actually absorbing all of your mother's nervous system, right? So you're highly connected to your mother's nervous system. So your first core wound wasn't actually on the play part when the girls were mean to you or when your father abused you. It was actually in your mother's womb. And it can be, it's all different for everybody. But for example, for me, one of mine is a very severe abandonment wound because my twin died in the uterus. So I had no idea that this was a thing. And I never understood why I always felt like I was being abandoned. But it makes sense now to realize that I was in my mother's womb. My twin died in there. And that creates a sense of separation. I also downloaded basically my mother's nervous system. So all of the transgenerational wounds get passed down to us. It can be up to 7 generations that we start to absorb all this. And then our life purpose and our life's work is to really learn how to transmute these and decipher what is ours and what is not. And it's beautiful when we learn that it's not actually life that we're fearing. It's the emotion underneath the fact that we're fearing. So once we can learn how to feel, because our parents did not feel, we weren't taught how to feel. No one was taught how to feel. So don't feel like you are, I don't know, like separate. Don't feel like you are in a place of lack and that you got handed the short stick. This is it. This is the life purpose. We are not always meant to feel good all the time. We're not meant to always be high vibe. We're meant to work through the generations and our own experiences. Once we come back online, once we become aware that there must be another way, we start working through this and learning how to trust our body. We can start feeling things and start moving through things. We start shifting our perspective and we start growing because we're not afraid of the emotion anymore. So if you like, I would love to know if you are aware right now, what is one emotion that you avoid like the cough, like the plague? What's something that you were taught that was bad, that you constantly avoid, that you feel shame around if you express it? Anything like that, I would just love to hear about that. And I'm going to look at the comments. Yeah, May, those questions are also in the workbook too, if you need it. fear in many forms. Now, if you could, if you knew, if you were tapped into your higher self and you knew exactly what that fear is, what emotion underneath the fear is that you're afraid of? Because fear isn't actually an emotion, it is the experience of the emotion. So we have a biological fear response, which is part of our nervous system, which I'm about to teach you guys about. And the fear is what triggers the like if we are afraid of shame, if we're afraid of expressing anger, if we're afraid of um being fully expressed, right? Or being seen or rejected or anything like that. Fear is the driver that's causing us to, it's filtering through our belief system. It's causing us to repress that emotion, to which we avoid certain circumstances, to which we hold all these emotions in, and to which we start to feel lost because we are not able to actually be ourselves, right? We mask up. We start to create protective mechanisms. We start to binge eat because we don't know that we actually need to connect with other people, right? Right. Worry was mine, not living up to expectations. That was me. Amazing. And how does not living up to expectations show up for you guys then in your life? Not even in your life. How does it feel in your body when that gets triggered? Restricted. Yep. Yep. We feel constricted. These are our core wounds that we're talking about here. And it might be something else too. You have tight. There are core wounds, and our core wounds are essentially, like I talked about, when we're in our mother's womb, we have the core wound, but then things compound on top of it. So we always have an imprint. I'm not even going to say trauma, but I want you all to know that we are all walking trauma responses until we become aware of it. And if you don't think you have trauma, it's because your trauma is literally so good at repressing that it's like, yeah, no, we're just going to like put it underneath another layer so that you are going to think that you don't. Everyone has it. We live in this time, right? So it's compounding imprints. That's what I call it. It's imprints because it's just a common thing of being human. So there's no need to feel shame around it or anything like that. Feel empowered that you're actually willing to work on this, right? And learn another way. So when we feel tight, when we feel constricted, right? What symptoms do you feel in your body other than feeling tight? Do you notice any gut issues? Do you notice sleeping issues? Do you notice maybe inability to show up fully in your life? Do you feel tired? Like you feel like you're wired and tired at the same time? Yep. And we feel tired because we are constricting our life force, right? So when we're not fully expressing and we're not fully aware of our body and we are suppressing, think about it. When you're suppressing something, emotion is energy in motion. Okay. And so our body has energy running through it all the time through our nervous system. When we are suppressing something, and a lot of it's unconscious, what happens is that we are using so much energy to keep that thing, that fear, whatever emotion it is, hidden down. And this is our body is very smart. It's just labeled it as bad. And so it's trying to protect us and it's trying to help us. This is why working on belief systems and working with the nervous system is so important. But that amount of energy is being used up. So your core wound takes up most of your energy, and it's actually where all of the disease or the symptoms are being cultivated by, because there's somewhere in your body, and it's different for everybody. This is why it's a very personalized approach. There's somewhere in your body that you constantly have the same type of symptom show up, right? It's like a reoccurring. Maybe if it's muscle, then that's going to be something recent. And then if it's like in the organs, then that's from childhood. Okay. I don't have enough time to go over all of this right now, but that's how it works within the body when the energy is being constricted. So when we can understand that and we can start to get curious, when we allow ourselves to become aware of what's going on psychologically, emotionally, and mentally, and begin working through that, you'd be very surprised at how symptoms start to clear up. And I can even give you an example with someone on here on this call is that one of my clients, Jess, is on here, or Jessica. There's two Jesses, but Jessica, I'll say. She recently had a release, emotional release with me. We did inner child work. And I asked her, did you notice any shifts or differences after you had that release? And she said, yeah, my digestion cleared up. So it's very fascinating and it's hard to put into words. There's a lot of literature and science I can send you guys all. I don't want to go super far into it today, but it's very interesting to understand how energy works within the body and how when we're able to release, we're able to bring attention to the body and listen to the body, we can hear what it needs. It is a truth. I know it's amazing when that happens. So raise your hand if you have ever heard of your nervous system, if you've ever learned about it. Perfect. All right, let me present this real quickly for you guys. And then we're going to go over. All right. So, can everybody see the screen? All righty. Learning the language of the nervous system is the way to hack into your neurology and ensure long-lasting mind-body changes that create a two-point version of you. Now, let me explain. Right here, what you see in this picture is a beautiful graph of the polyvagal theory. And you can understand what I'm showing you right here is our nervous system in this image. The nervous system is the command center essentially for your body, right? So obviously we are aware that we have our nervous system where we don't have to think about it. Our body breathes and our body blinks and it does all of those things. But there's another part of our nervous system that's connected to our subconscious mind too, that we actually are able to shift and make changes to. So when we did our breathing a little while back, you actively changed your state by doing that, right? So I want to show you here, give you an example. So let's say you're going into work, okay? You're going into work and you are starting off slowly in the morning. When you have a nice slow morning, you're going to be in your ventral vagal system here, which is your social engagement system. This is where you heal. This is your connection, your safety. This is where you're curious, you're open, you're compassionate, you're in joy, you're in the present moment. This is also where your digestion is turned on. So this is why it's important to understand and start to notice your body sensations by becoming aware of it and tuning into it. Because a lot of times we've just all been in a state of survival, right? We've been in a sympathetic and we don't realize it, or we're in freeze up here. But when we're in a ventral vagal and our parasympathetic nervous system state, our digestion increases, our intestinal motility increases, we are resistant to infection. So our immune response is better. We rest, we repair, we can tune into our oxytocin. Our ability to relate and connect is better off, and our circulation is well, right? Our lymphatic system is good. Now, we are not always supposed to be here. We're really not. We're not supposed to be here. Part of nervous system regulation is not to constantly be calm, to always be high vibe. We're meant to go through this entire thing. Now, let me explain. So you're out, you have a nice morning, nice and slow, and then your boss calls you. And he doesn't say why, but he says he needs you to come in and he needs to talk to you. And he just doesn't say why. And he says, I'll see you in 15 minutes. So at this point, you'll notice in that moment that you start to worry, you start to feel a little anxiety, maybe fear, panic all at the same time. And you'll notice when this happens, your blood pressure starts to go up, your heart rate goes up, you feel adrenaline, right? Your pupil size dilates. You stop storing fuel. Your insulin This is why people with nervous system sensitivity usually get pre-diabetes, even if they're living a super healthy lifestyle. They don't know why. And it's because your stress response is very, very connected to your blood sugar. So if your blood sugar isn't regulated, you're not going to have a regulated nervous system. So it's a bidirectional relationship there. So working with the physiology along with doing nervous system work and mindset work is very, very important. It's both and it's not one or the other. But you essentially experience the different sympathetic states. So fight or flight. If you want to, you can write in the chat, which one are you more prone to? Are you more prone to fighting or are you more prone to avoiding and flighting, right? And after that, let's say he calls you like 5 minutes prior to when you're supposed to be there. And he goes, hey, sorry, something came up. Can we meet at 7 p.m. tonight? At this point, it's 11 a.m. And he's asking you to wait, 8 hours or something like that? And you're like, sure, like the help you, yeah, no problem. Okay, what do we do? Okay, we go into a freeze state because at this point, you're already so fatigued, right? Your body's not meant to stay here. It's meant to go up and go down in deactivation. But because you're in this like prolonged state of waiting, this is where you'll go into a freeze state. So a lot of people nowadays, because we're chronically all in a state of survival all the time, like this scenario that I'm telling you is constantly happening because our mind doesn't know what's real or perceived. So because we're worrying, because we're repressing, because we are looking at like externally for solutions, and because there's so much shit going on outside of us constantly, right? We go into a freeze state. In a freeze state with dorsal vagal, this is where shame is, shut down, hopelessness, trapped, conserve of energy. Essentially, that's what it is. If you've ever seen an animal in the wild where they are, for example, they freeze and play dead to get away from the predator. Well, essentially, that's what's happening to a lot of us. We're getting diagnosed with depression when really we're in a nervous system state of freeze. Some people are in low chronic state of freeze. So you're functional freeze. So you're constantly working and doing. But then when you're home alone, you can't do shit. You're like, I want to do all these things, but I can't. And why am I on my phone stuck scrolling? And why do I feel this way? Like I just want to, you feel like you're stuck, essentially. This is when we're in freeze, right? So your body is essentially conserving energy because so much of the energy is being used to repress and suppress, right? And then add on top of that, because we are using so much energy from the stress of being in survival, your body a lot of times is nutrient depleted or we have infections going on, right? So the more activated your body is in the nervous system state, the less your body is going to digest. The less it's going to digest. Your immune system shuts off, right? Your gut eventually will create pockets where it's leaky gut. Your brain and your circadian rhythm will offset. So you'll feel wired and tired. You'll eventually reach a place of burnout, which is where we are in freeze and we're in overwhelm. So your body needs a moment to recenter. At this point, we're not in our body, we're in our mind, right? This is where we cut off from our body and we start living in our mind. Now, to understand this, when we are living in our mind, like many of us are in survival, and we're cut off from our body, we are so numb we're so numb because we're in survival, which means cortisol and adrenaline are just coursing through our veins. We don't realize how much pain we actually are in. And the gut-brain connection is where you'll see if we have stress, it affects our nutrient delivery, it affects our microbiome health, which is where we make our neurotransmitters and our serotonin or our dopamine and our oxytocin. All of these things are created in the gut. It's going to affect our movements and essentially can affect whether or not we are feeling anxiety, depression, if we're feeling good, if we're feeling active, but it gets depleted, right? So the communication back from the gut to the brain is getting depleted. So your body essentially is constantly in a stress state. And so it's constantly communicating back up to your body saying, hey, warning, hey, warning, hey, warning. Essentially, when we are experiencing that and we're cut off from our body because your body is trying to help you, right? This is where you begin to become aware of this routine that you're in, right? If you're noticing that you are feeling anxious, you're feeling depressed, you're feeling like you don't have much energy, it's extremely important to just slowly, not hour-long meditations, not try to do it all at once, but slowly begin to create dialogue with your body. Okay. So creating safety, letting it know it's there, because a lot of us have forgotten, right? We forget. We forget that our body's there. We separate it. We shame it. We have a very disempowering relationship with it. So the beginning stages of all of this is to non-judgmentally bring awareness to your body, and you can start to use breath. You can start to use dialogue. And one of my favorite ways to do this is through essentially doing what we did earlier and going from your toes all the way up to your head, moving through each part of your body and asking it, acting as if you are going to an interview, a corporation, and you're going to ask each employee, which is each symptom and each organ and each part of your body, what they've been experiencing, how they feel about this. Because our organs in our body are different consciousness warehouses for stored emotions. Each organ, each emotion specifically gets stored in different areas of our body, right? And so when you can begin to do that, you would be very surprised to find how much information is actually there, right? There's a lot of information already at your fingertips, but we've been so prone to look outside of ourselves, to buy the diet, to buy the cleanse, to buy the shots, to buy the medication, and not actually start listening to the one who actually has the power all along. Does that make sense? So Karen, I see you said my go-to is flight. Was it fight? Oh, flight, fight, and freeze. Yeah, exactly. People pleasing show up in these ways are protective mechanisms, right? Our trauma responses like people pleasing, we can avoid binge eating. All of these are ways that you are able to map out and see, okay, where am I not listening to my body, right? When we're binge eating, when I work with clients with binge eating, it really has nothing to do with the food. There are massive emotional memories that are tied to the food that you've put meaning to it. So the dialogue that we put to whatever protective mechanism that we have that helps us separate from our body and dissociate in a way is tied to that. So for example, with binge eating, we can do inner child work, which I do with my one-on-one clients. And you can find that the food that we've been binging or we've been trying to restrict is actually a representation of where we are not feeling connected to ourselves, right? Where we are, it's a cry. It's your body's way of saying, okay, I'm very smart. Let me get, food is essentially a drug. It's like the most abused drug in the world, especially nowadays with like the food technologies that there are. It shifts our state. But then we have meaning and we put meaning to it. And then we shame ourselves. And then we go into this loop of, I'm going to restrict it. No. I'm going to restrict it. Okay. All right. Just call my name. Oh, and it's not actually the food you want. It's the control, right? It's releasing of the control, giving yourself permission to have it. Okay, you have it. You feel better. All right, cool. Now you feel like shame. You're ashamed of yourself. I can't believe I couldn't do that. Keep going. Keep going. And you just loop and you loop and you loop and it becomes an addiction and it's keeping you away from actually getting into your body and feeling. And so if I get anything across, right, it's the beginning of this journey. And it's always the beginning of this journey. When we get into any type of healing work, we're trying to get away from pain. And I'm here to tell you, every single modality is walking you straight fucking through. That's the only fucking way. You can keep avoiding feeling and you can keep avoiding all of this, even with nutrition. It's not about the food, right? It's not about the food. When you begin to shift your emotional, energetic state, then the behaviors start to fall into place. Then it doesn't feel so hard. Then you want to start nourishing your body because you have more respect for your body, more love for your body because you have a relationship with your body. Most people have narcissistic relationships with their body. It's good when it's good, baby, but when it's bad, fuck you. You look like shit. Ugh, I wish I could never look at you, and you cover it up, right? So that's a lot. Um, but I want you to start getting curious about it. I'm aware. Yeah, you're aware when you feel. When you're saying that, do you mean like you're aware, you keep doing it? Right. So that's what I'm saying. It's you are aware. But I know you know this, awareness is great until it's not. We can be really, really aware. So we have to interrupt the pattern, but we also need to, like, you can keep interrupting the pattern through getting into your body and creating safety and asking what it needs. But you want to find the core wound. So inner child work with this is really, really important. So whatever food like if I was working with you one-on-one, Karen, I would specifically, identify what that food is, whatever food, if it's sweets or if it's a specific food. And then I would ask you, what is tied to that food? What memory do you have from childhood? Sweets. Okay, cool. What memory do you have from childhood of that? Yep, you couldn't have it. So it's a rebellion act. Okay. So we have these traumatic trauma responses where we will purposely, even though we want to do something, we want to eat better, we want to be healthy, right? This is conscious brain. Subconsciously, you're still a little inner child that was fucking rebelling from your mother or your father. And you're like, right? You're like, I don't give a shit. I'm going to eat this shit. But then it's like reality hits and you're like, fuck, God damn it. Right. And you go through that process. So it's being able to, what I would do with you is I would take you through an inner child session, and then I would allow you to interact with your inner child or your mother or father, whoever the authority figure was, um, and allow you to fully express which wasn't expressed, right? Allow you to come to what is it that you need, because we cannot feel before we can start feeling. We have to get in tune with our senses, right? And so once we get in tune with our senses, then we can identify what is it that we need. Some people don't allow themselves to have needs, right? And then once we know that what we need, we can fully start to express the emotions of feeling hurt, the emotions of feeling abandoned, the emotions of feeling like you need connect, right? You're able to identify, oh, that's what that feeling is. Then you feel it, and then you're able to create boundaries and start reconstructing your identity, right? To create that safety around it. But before all of that, yep, it's the last 3 months. Yeah. And this isn't one and done either. Just so everybody understands this. Yeah. It's allowing yourself to, one, trust yourself, and two, sometimes you just need to give yourself permission. It wouldn't be any more fun if you just said, okay, I'll have it, right? Like, allow yourself to have pleasure. When we do that and we allow ourselves to have pleasure, because that's actually a need, like a biological need is pleasure. There's a lot of shame around pleasure, whether it's food, sex, gender, whether it's our wants and needs, there's shame. And so some people don't ask for what they need around it. They're completely repressed around it, or they're reactive, right? And so this shows up in multiple ways and ways expressed in our life. But allowing ourselves, like I always say, pleasure is spiritual. So pleasure, if you allow yourself to feel it, whatever it is for you in different ways, it can be sexuality and it can be other ways, but allow yourself to have that. We need it. We need it to grow. We need it to expand. We actually rewire quicker when we feel pleasure. So just giving yourself permission to have that pleasure. I don't want to overload you guys with information today, so I'm going to leave that. Let me make sure that I have everything on here. So the shifts that I want you to really get before we get off here and I go over what the workbook is, okay, does it matter if you start asking from the feet or the head? Like, is it better to start further away from the head since we get stuck there? No. So I just start with you can do it however you want. You just want to go all the way up and down. I mean, honestly, I like to do the feet just because perspective in your body wise, but it does not matter. Just make it so it's funner. So you're like going and you're essentially like interviewing a corporation and you're like, all right, what is it that you need? What have you, like, what needs to be heard? There's going to be an experience where there might be some parts of your body that don't say anything, but there also is going to be a part of your body that may just start blabbing, right? Parts of what it needs. This is where all of our repressed emotions get stored. And so opening up that dialogue and allowing yourself to really get in tune with your body and understand that, like, you have all the answers. We just have to start getting in tune with our senses. And then we'll know what we need. Then we'll be able to allow ourselves to feel it. And we will slowly begin to stop fearing life. And we will start embracing life because we'll have the confidence to know that we can move through anything, even disease. Disease is not here to punish you. Disease is here to teach you something. And it's realigning you. Yes, some people pass away. I understand that. I've dealt with a lot of chronic disease within my family. But it's also important to understand that it's really not happening to you. It's happening through you. So the more that we can understand that, and we can understand that these lessons and these experiences are always bringing us back into ourselves. Always. Every single one. It gets tiring explaining it because I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. You got to go back with that because only you know the answer. Only you know that. So the points that I was going to say a second ago, let me make sure I read the chat. Okay, great. So a trigger question I wanted to ask you guys was, and you guys can contemplate this, is what have you ignored in your body that could be the key to your healing? And then the shifts that I really want you to gather tonight is that it's time to stop seeing your body as an obstacle and start viewing it as your greatest ally, right? There is a lot of forgiveness that goes into this, a lot of release, a lot of expectation that we hold on our body of what it should have been, could have been, right? There's a lot of anger held in there. So really seeing it as like, not only has it been holding on to all that emotion and those memories that we didn't have the capacity or the resources to feel in our past, but it's also carried us through everything, right? Everything. Like, this is your homie. Like, the more that we can really get into the body, the easier it will become the ally. And you'll start to understand what self-love and real, authentic, unconditional love is, not conditional, right? A lot of times when we are basing it on symptoms, it's a conditional love. We're like, I love myself. But when it has symptoms, yeah, a lot of it's subconscious driven. So sometimes we get ourselves sick to get out of things. We don't realize it, right? All right. So your body is your greatest ally. Your symptoms are a map leading you back to your wholeness. Health is not about eradicating symptoms. It's about listening and responding to them. And your body holds infinite wisdom. So the journey that we're going to take throughout these next 5 days is getting you closer and closer to body trust, which body trust and ease and really understanding what it means to not be stuck in a thought loop your entire life, to allow, to surrender, to let go of those things that you've been holding on, right? So to really start moving yourself out of freeze and survival and into a place of agency, right? For me personally, when I ignored my symptoms, which were gut symptoms, this is after I got sober, I had gut issues, I had chronic fatigue, I had brain fog, and I was constantly anxious, even though I was doing all the things. I was spending like $300 a month on supplements. I was working out. I lost 40 pounds. I looked great. I put on muscle. I was working. Everything looked great. These symptoms cleared up the minute that I actually got honest with myself and I got out of the relationship I was in. So I had chronic insomnia when I lived with my ex. Chronic. And anxiety it would feel like I was being pulled apart when I was near him. Nothing wrong with the person. Still friends to this day. But because I knew the truth, but I was avoiding it. I kept hearing in my head, this isn't it. This isn't it. This isn't the person for me. Lauren, this isn't the person for me. And I was like, I'm just going to meditate. Say, yeah, nope, not that one. Nope. That just seemed a little uncomfortable because I was afraid of feeling, because I was afraid of that abandonment, which I was unaware of. It felt like it was life or death if I listened to that calling of my body. The minute that it finally happened, it happened to me after that. Like life did it for me. It was very abrupt. But the minute that happened, that truth was honored and it was given to me as a gift because I was not resourced enough to finally walk away, that took me on one of the biggest initiations of my recent years that allowed me to get to this place of epiphany after epiphany after epiphany. Like, holy shit. Like, I need to date myself. I need to really get to know this body. I need to nurture that little girl that's inside of me. I was so used to being in a relationship that I had no idea I didn't know what I needed. I didn't know what I wanted. I had no idea, right? And so your body will express itself in different circumstances. It just doesn't have to do with our, um, health and losing weight and all those things. It shows up in relationships. So the more that you get in tune with your body, the more that you can sense if you feel comfortable around a person, if someone's not comfortable with you. And I want to remind you that you're going to have to move through these things. So you're going to notice that you don't pay attention to your senses. That's still learning. That's still healing. The awareness of it, being non-judgmental, and then allowing yourself to say, isn't that interesting? I noticed that I, pushed that away. Why did I do that? Let me go underneath this. What's going on? What am I afraid of? What emotion am I not allowing myself to feel? And just allow it to be there. Allow the discomfort to sit in your body. Trust your body to allow it to move through, right? And then, you have your workbooks. You have, there are 2 sections in there that's more information, kind of like what we covered today. Goes over body literacy. And then I have what the physical body, like that part of body, shows up through symptoms. And then you have journaling questions that you can journal whether or not you'd like to, or contemplate, like what symptoms have you been experiencing that you're trying to fix rather than listen to, allowing yourself to really get clear on that, where you're not coming from a fixing energy and you're coming from a place of curiosity and what do I need, right? What is it that I need? And then there is also an exercise in it. So when you're looking at your workbook, there is, after the journaling questions, you'll see the growth work. And I believe the one for the body literacy is essentially what I told you guys to go over is the body scan. So doing it privately by yourself. You can put music in if you'd like, binaural beats if you want, or you can just do it silently before bed and just, instead of just doing a typical body scan, kind of just go through your body and be like, hey toes, how you doing? Hey ankle, what's good? Tell me what's good. Like how's it been? Is there any like protective mechanism that's bossing you around? What have you been holding on to? Bring some levity into it. And yeah. And then tomorrow we'll meet up. Tomorrow's gonna be really cool. We're gonna be going over what is body consciousness. We're gonna be understanding the neuroscience of how our beliefs and our thought patterns affect our biology and our physiology, and how that all plays out, and how the belief structure that we have right now is what's making up the matter of your body. So this is where it comes into play of our identity. This current identity is the result of what your health is now. And so it's in the process of reconstructing and unbecoming the more protective, constricted core wounds and protective mechanisms, and allowing those to open up to create a place of health, place of, vitality and healing. And that's done through repatterning and rewiring the mind. And then we'll keep going. Day 3 is feel and heal. Day 4 is own your power, which is body agency. And then day 5 is body trust. And we'll be going through the identity evolution process and understanding what that is. So does anybody have any questions or anything like that? You feeling good? Thank you guys for staying on here. Good. Yay. I'm like sweating right now. I have like 87 lights on me. I'm like, amazing, guys. If anybody doesn't have any, if they're having any issues getting into the portal, just message me privately, or you can, it's JoelandCoaching at Gmail, or you can message me on social media if we follow each other. I also want you guys to, uh, feel free to reach out if you have any other questions that are more personal. But I appreciate you guys. I'm gonna get off here and allow you guys to kind of digest all of this. And the replay will be up probably in the next hour or so. So, all right. Bye, guys. Love you. See you tomorrow.